Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to 5 and 15, a webinar series from CEO where we promise to give you at least 5 useful, interesting tips that you can use in your work in marketing, communications, branding, crisis management sometimes, all within the constraints of a 15-minute webinar because we know you are busy, just like us. Try to get it to you fast. I'm Mark Gale, CEO at CO. And today, as you know, we've switched the format a little of 5 and 15. Some of you who are here every time to talk to thought leaders in certain areas that we believe can help us navigate the craziness of the global pandemic. Today, lucky to have Andy Ford with us, Chief Transformation Officer. Now, that's a pretty cool title. Andy, pretty cool title from a pretty cool company called Brado. They specialize in using some really fascinating techniques to help people shape the future. So, Andy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself just a little bit and Brado just a little bit, and then we will jump right in.
Mark, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this, and the conversations we've had leading up to this have also been very thoughtful.
Fun.
So I appreciate it. I've been at Brado for 9 years now. I've got a background in innovation, and so we are a company that is right at the hinge of understanding how empathy can drive the marketplace. And so we have market research, intelligence, we have a brand activation piece, and then our side is the business transformation. And so once again, really trying to use empathy to understand how we can create a better experience for a large number of customers. And we're talking about, pharmaceuticals, so healthcare professionals, all the way up to people who eat Ruffles potato chips.
Okay.
So
Ruffles potato chips.
Person.
Yeah. All right. So now, Andy, you're getting into some touchy-feely stuff here. We're starting with empathy. So I'm reading Brene Brown right now, so that's all about empathy. And I know you use this discipline called design thinking. Now, it's been bannered around in recent years, but let's be honest. Come on, most of us don't know what the heck it means and how to apply it. So, could you give us a little primer on just what that is and how that works as a tool?
Yeah, great question, Mark. It can be as confusing as the word innovation, which can mean any number of things to any number of people. In some organizations we work with, on the pharmaceutical side, we'll call this, human-centered design. In building process, they'll call it agile or lean. But the opportunity behind design thinking is to have a iterative methodology that uses an internal set of knowledge and balances that out with what the customer is actually experiencing. So that's where that empathy and understanding comes in. So we are, along the way, taking our information and then saying to our customer, is this the solution for you? And then in hope, and this is the way it works, is they go, no, that's not for me. That's for somebody else. We'll say, well, let's make a better experience for you. Then we'll take that information back in, reprocess, come back out to the marketplace, and then often in an iterative, pilot, or testable way. So that way, when we do launch a new product or service, it's from the heart that customer wants. It really, really resonates with them, and it delivers a wow moment. That's really what design thinking is about.
Okay. Now, you said when you and I are talking a couple times previous, and we'll stay just a little bit big picture here before we get down a little bit more granular. I wrote this down because I thought it was such a cool phrase: design an optimal future for your customer. Now, I think all of us as business providers, whether we have a product, a service, whatever, consultant. Yeah, I mean, I like the sound of designing an optimal future for our customers. Like, I think that would be pretty useful for them. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, sounds good, but crystal balls, most of us aren't so good with the crystal balls. So how do we do that? And by the way, I went to the Stanford group and I've got this great diagram of design thinking that I've been studying up a little bit before I talked with you.
Great, that's great. If you're looking at design thinking and you dial into Stanford and the folks at IDEO, you're going to be going down the right path.
Okay,
for some.
yeah, I looked at both of those. Yeah.
The other advice I'll give you is if you're interested in this at all, also look up the double diamond. That's another great methodology that design thinking uses that pulls that process along. So, Mark, the great thing about designing an optimal future is that you're really trying to understand what the barriers, the needs, and the desires of that customer are. And then if you can understand what jobs they're trying to solve and figure out where the greatest opportunity to affect change is, and then just go hit that mark, you'll raise the tide for all the boats in the ocean. And I'll give you an example. Is that years and years ago, working with PepsiCo for Taco Bell, one of the things we realized is that people really didn't want to spend a lot of time inside a Taco Bell. I mean, let's face it. I mean, like, get my food and go is, an opportunity. And when we started looking at where the human behavior was moving and what was missing, what we recognized was that there was nothing after 11, say 11 p.m. or midnight. No one was open. And so what we realized is we had such a high drive-through opportunity, and to extend our hours, we could create a whole new paradigm for that brand to own something. So what we did was we bet on that behavior having an opportunity to be impacted through our business. And so it's really not just betting on the future. It's using that strategy, that transformative mindset to say, where can we affect change? And then bullet point on that and focus on it until you get it right.
So I'm trying to get into the mind of the ultimate customer, really, and the experience that they want or the product that they want. Now, you told me a little bit about, let's bring it down a little closer. So, as you know, at CEO, we work in food system, agriculture, literally out to, for our client, Dairy Queen, ice cream in a kid's hand, to might be enzymes on a seed in the ground and feeding animals and microbiome on the whole process in the middle there. You said that you had done some work with a food ingredient company or supplement company, and realized that you might not be able to share the names and whatnot, but that's pretty practical for us because somebody created that food or those elements, and somebody's going to eat those, consumers like us on the other end. So maybe you could bring it home a little bit to us to how we could use that within the industries that those who are listening here focus on.
Yeah, I think it's a key question right now we're asking, Mark, across, I'd say the food marketplace is, one of those things we often, and you and I have worked in the food business for a long time, and I often find that the brands we're working with are actually following trends as opposed to making their own path in the marketplace. I think in light of COVID-19, it's never been more important to design a better experience in the marketplace rather than just following trends. And so some of the things that we're seeing right now, let's use nutraceuticals, for example, is there's a real movement of people looking for ways to boost their digestive systems through everyday foods they eat, including the supplements or the pills that they take. And so where else are they doing that? So that's another area that we really try to focus on. Not just understand how they're trying to do it with food, but do we see them doing this in other categories? Are they using antimicrobial, elements for the buttons they touch every day? Are they looking for other ways to boost gut flora? Can we create a product that actually fulfills that need so that then they kill or replace whatever those other experiences are with the thing that we're offering? And so to your point, it's really getting to know your customer, understanding their total life, not just their life in food, and then trying to understand if we can create something that will fit in that hole and give them a better experience. That is how we move that path, get closer to something they really want.
Sure. Now, so one of the problems with research, pricing research, for example, no matter whether it's a farmer or consumer, people will say that they'll do one thing, but then when it comes to actually paying an extra, sometimes 5 cents for something, they won't do it. So how can we get to things that consumers will actually do versus what they might tell a researcher, might they tell us or take a survey and say they would do?
Yeah, that's the lifelong question, isn't it? And so we say, one of the things that we say all the time and I think it's a truism, is that people buy things for one of three reasons. It's either time, it's love, or it's money. Now, most of the brands we work with, they've dimensionalized time and money really, really well. But the passion, the thing that just kind of drives you, that makes you want something, even though you don't know exactly how much it costs, finding that desire is always the better trump card. Now,
Okay.
you can't do that. I think we do have to stand back and give modern technology a little bit more of an opportunity to begin to vet out where some of those products or services may stand out a little bit more. I know we all love Bases or Snappy Tool or all these other pieces, but I've been saying that we've been testing concepts now using a little bit more artificial intelligence, and we are uncovering some of those hidden gems that give us a greater likelihood to purchase than just an outright, would you spend this versus that?
And do you think that does that apply equally to the B2B consumer as well as the, you know,
And I
somebody
should say,
buying at retail?
be careful with that. I'll give you an example. Working with a major pharmaceutical company across a large number of healthcare professionals, and we were talking about really a go-to-market strategy. So we didn't have a product. What we had was, if we were presenting this information in this way to you, would it be more desirable than if you had it coming all the way at the end when the pipeline drug was available? And so we were literally asking business strategy questions on where the opportunity was really for success and failure, and it did give us a correlation. And so there's a way to do it, but you got to reframe it. It can't be a concept test. It's this versus that. It just won't work.
It won't work. Okay, you got to dig deeper. Now, Andy, we're coming on about 12 minutes, and for those on, we try to respect the 15. We might go a minute or two longer for those who want to hang with us. But now the big question. So, how do we apply? How do we apply this? Let's say I'm selling feed ingredients into dairy, or I'm selling seed to a soybean farmer, or I'm a food processor, or we're working with a company, canning tomatoes in California right now, up and down, all the way out. How can we apply this in our varied organizations? Now, I know the one thing to do is to hire you, right? So, so then give us enough information so we could, decide whether to do that or not, and give us some tips on how we could apply these concepts of empathy, design thinking, and in business, empathy has become such a bigger thing in recent years for lots of reasons. How can we begin to apply this to shape how we make decisions and how we can scenario plan for our organizations?
Mark, I think hiring someone like what our firm does, I'm always of the mindset that the people who hire us are the kinds of people who would generally want to work for us.
Yeah,
they have the same mindset. I think having a natural yearning for curiosity is first and foremost the most compelling asset to truly being a design thinker. I wrote a brief deck that I'd be glad to send to anyone who reached out to me, was how to think like a business and keep your day job. And so I'd be glad to give that away. But here's two things on this. There's a great book called Look at More. And one of the things they do in that book is they have a notion called LAMSTY, which is look at more stuff, think about it harder. I think anytime you want to try to get a client to think differently about their consumer or their category, you have to come in with compelling future thinking that says, this is the opportunity we have to change the way we're viewed or how we approach the marketplace. And so I'd say initially, if you're listening to this webinar, start really thinking about what you think the future is going to look like. You can think about it in your category. You can think about it from your customer's point of view. Start to develop your own thought process on what those channels or those paradigms may be, how they shift, and then begin to ask people about them. Once you start really socializing that information, asking others, and not just your clients, but your peers, actual customers, you begin to get a perspective, I think, that broadens your paradigm and can really lead to some change.
Okay. And so what would you say, we'll go all the way back to empathy. So what would you say to people who feel that that's, too ephemeral? It's just not hard enough in today's, and I was talking to somebody just yesterday. We're feeling, and you and I talked about it, how, clients, no matter what business you're in, they're in a practical mode. It's like, man, there's a global pandemic. I need to know, what am I going to get? How much is it going to cost? When are you going to get it to me? How can I believe you? In this practical world, convince us that empathy is still so critically important. I mean, I believe it is, but I want to hear what you have to say.
It's a great question. When it comes to our clients and the role we have for translating how their customers are viewing or feeling about the marketplace and making the role of empathy really important, to your point, what we are doing is we're coming and saying, we are going to do this investigation. We are going to probe deeply into this customer. And then we're going to sit down with you and a small core set of team, and we're going to say, now, what does it mean? And so we'll do the heavy lifting because they don't have the time. They don't have the time, or they're too close to the target. But then we're going to set a set of objectives and say, once we understand what their needs, their wants, their barriers are, we're going to sit down with you and we're going to say, how are we going to communicate that? We are going to make it tactical. We are going to work approachable. So that way they can actually, to your point, make some decisions and move forward.
Yeah, make it tactical. I love that, because I feel that, that's the world we're in right now for a whole bunch of reasons. So Andy, we're out of time. We're over time. Give us the book again, please, that you said to read.
Yeah, Look at More is the name of the book.
Okay.
It's a great primer for developing your own set of themes. And then hit me up and I'll send you how to think like a futurist and keep your day job.
Great. All right. We're going to hit you up for that. Andy, for those on here right now, we always follow up with a quick email. We'll send you a link to the book. We'll send you, if that's okay, Andy, a link to you and Brado. And thank you so much for joining us on 5 and 15. Fascinating discussion. I'm going to get the book. I'm going to do some more reading. And so really appreciate that you and Brado were able to join us today. So Andy, with that, I'm going to sign off here, and just want to let you know, everyone, that next time we're going to go deep into the channel. We're going to talk with our leading rancher. We're going to go into the beef distribution from somebody who's raising cattle and is a prominent figure in the beef industry. So that'll be a little bit of different view, but we're trying to do this exploration and see how they're dealing with COVID. Andy, thanks so much. It's a crazy time, but people like you are helping to figure it out. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Mark Gale, 5 and 15, signing off. Appreciate everybody joining us.